welcome to the Christmas TED Talk. Probably not the only one for December, but a TED Talk. This TED Talk has been a long time coming. It is specifically for Gabby and for anyone who needs to learn about female reproduction, hormones, and fertility. As always, it may be interrupted by this one, or that one. It may even be interrupted by knocks at the door. So here we go. Welcome to the TED Talk. Okay, so not my forte, not my favorite subject, but one you should have learned in school, usually junior high. Some parents didn't let you, so you had to wait till high school, and some parents still didn't let you, so you had to learn it in community college. Worst of all is from your friends, because they never got it right. Someone's trying to eat my Chef Carl Pointer. So we're going to first go through some anatomy, because Gabby is very unaware of anatomy. So she thinks she knows, but I think a lot of people are confused. So if you look at the Dodge Ram symbol, that's how you should remember female reproduction, because it literally looks like the Ram symbol. Okay, it's a running joke. So you have your uterus. Your uterus is the pear-shaped object from this line up, and it's divided into two parts. Okay, see, whole thing is your uterus. Part of it slips in here. See how it's dotted? Because you can't see it because there's this funny little tube over the end. Okay, so the whole thing is called your uterus, right? The big part at the top is called your corpus, which just means body. And then you have your cervix, which is the lower half, okay? And that slips into the vagine. I don't know if I can say it. I don't know why that word would be picked out. I'm just following guidelines, I guess. So, attached to the top of the corpus are the fallopian tubes, okay? Those have little openings and they go through this little tube, little tiny tube. At the end of the fallopian tube, you will find the ovary, but it is not attached to the tube. Misconception number one. There's little like tentacles. They look like little octopus tentacles or finger-like tentacles. They're called fimbriae or fimbrii, depending on how you say it. And those little guys catch eggs as they pop out and then transport them into the tube. Now the tube is connected to the uterus, but that's the only connection. This actually is a space. And the little fimbriae, they're like little fingers that go around, so they create almost like a suction, and they're sticky, and they'll pull as the egg pops out. They pull it in. The uterus is made of a muscular tissue, which is your endometrium. It is very muscular, which is why it contracts. It is made of muscle fiber, endometrial tissue fiber. Kind of out of order, so we'll do menstrual, but let's go through our hormones, okay? Because one of them she gets wrong. We have, of course, estrogen. We have progesterone. We have FSH, which is follicle stimulating hormone. Think of those little yellow guys. You also have your luteinizing hormone, which is LH. You have testosterone. Yes, women do produce testosterone. Always has to keep in balance. Homeostasis is the thing that our bodies runs on. Always in balance. And then you have HCG. I don't know if she's dyslexic. She always says HGC. It's HCG. human, okay, let's say it together, human chorionic gonadotropin, gonads. Think of tonic, chorionic gonadotropin, HCG. If you're going to talk about fertility, you're going to say it correctly. Otherwise, you look like an ass. Everybody knows estrogen, but if you're a woman, but in case you missed that part of class, let's do it. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on these hormones, okay? But let's get the basics done. Estrogen is produced by your ovaries and your adrenal glands, and also it is exuded from fat tissue, aka adipose tissue. You have the most estrogen produced in the first half of your cycle. So your cycle is 28 days. Days 1 through 14 will be your highest estrogen levels. Estrogen helps eggs mature so that they can be released. An egg cannot be released from the ovary unless it is mature. Estrogen also helps in thickening the uterine wall, okay? Because the walls have to be thickened up for implantation of that mature egg once it arrives. Estrogen also assists in, once the zygote is there, in creating secondary sex organs for your fetus. So you need estrogen if it's going to be a girl. Like I said, it's always in balance. So if it's going to be a girl, you're going to have a little bit more estrogen to help it develop sex organs. If it isn't going to be a girl, you're still going to have estrogen. It's just not going to be as much. Progesterone. Progesterone is created in the corpus luteum, which is inside your ovary. We will get to that, okay? It's not on here. It's inside the ovary itself, okay? After you ovulate, the corpus luteum produces the progesterone. So what does the progesterone do? Well, it also assists the estrogen in thickening the uterine wall to prepare for egg implantation. It also suppresses any hormones that would trigger you to have a period and go into another cycle. Progesterone is at its highest after you ovulate. So your little egg went pew. It's that time that it is most, what would you say? There's the most progesterone in your system right after ovulation. If you don't get pregnant, the progesterone level plummets. Once it plummets, it triggers another menstrual cycle. FSH and LH are kind of connected. But let's do FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, which is produced nowhere near here. It's produced in your brain, in your pituitary gland. So what FSH does is it stimulates the follicles inside your ovaries that hold your eggs and mature the eggs. They're these little guys inside that kind of cradle one egg apiece, and they sit and mature that egg. And your FSH helps that. Once the little egg is mature and pops out, LH comes into play. Your luteinizing hormone assists your ovary into producing progesterone. So because FSH, that's really hard for me to say, because FSH helps to mature the eggs inside the follicles, it is most plentiful in the first half of your cycle up until ovulation. Your luteinizing hormone is most abundant right before ovulation because it's what kicks everything off. Testosterone, believe it or not, the ovaries produce it in small quantities. Why would you need it? Because it helps with desire, keeping your cycle on schedule, as well as working with estrogen for bone and muscle strength in both the mother and the fetus. HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin. Yes, we know that is what they're testing for in pee sticks or blood tests. Your HCG is the number value or positive negative that tells you if you are pregnant. It is produced by the placenta, or the thickened wall covering in the uterus that feeds and nourishes the child. It is produced by the placenta, and what it does is it helps to maintain the progesterone and estrogen levels during pregnancy. That's why the numbers continue to skyrocket. That's also why if there's nothing to feed, your HCG can be very low, if not non-existent. This is also why false positives are thrown, because people that need a DNC or a cleaning out of the uterus because the walls do not slough completely each time they have their period, or from a number of different conditions, such as endo, but there's other uterine conditions. If there are any patches of thickened wall, they will seep out small quantities of HCG, which leads to false positives. And yes, you can get a very tiny quantitative number of HCG on a blood test. Hormone imbalances are probably one of the biggest factors for that. Men can have positive HCGs. It is especially frequently seen in cancer detection, and not cancer of reproductive organs in men, but lung cancer, spinal cancer, brain cancer. Personally, I've seen it the most in liver, lung, and thyroid cancer. Prostate cancer. Because both men and women produce testosterone and estrogen. But like I said, all of these work in this absolute dance of balance. And if one thing goes off, it screws up the whole balance. The dance is ruined. They all work together, either to create a menstrual cycle or to support a pregnancy. A little English, fallopian tube. Not a floppy-in. Fallopian. Just like it looks. And also, it's adenomyosis or adenomyosis. Adeno refers to a gland. Myo is muscle. And the ending of SIS just means condition. I can't even remember how she says it, but she doesn't say it as it is. Also, a little freebie for Danny. It is hematology. He, not he. So it's hard to see, but you can see where I have the little red dotted line. The ends of the cervix come down. The vagine covers the end of the cervix, okay? And here's the opening to the world. Hello, world. God forbid I'm not going to say the word for fear I get dinged, but you know who that is. He's on the outside, isn't he? So that shows you this is the outside world. That is your vagine, okay? I only bring this up because I sat and listened to Gabby discuss a cervix and cervical opening that I started laughing so hard. I was in the kitchen and I was bent over the counter. I was crying. I kept playing it thinking I heard this incorrectly. And Hubs was playing at the computer and he goes, "What did she say?" And I am dying. I can't even talk. I'm laughing so hard. Simply because She kept talking about how the cervix is open, it's closed, it's open, it's closed, it's open, it's closed. And I'm envisioning this, like, you remember the little crocodiles you got as kids that were on like sticks like this and it had a trigger ending and their little mouth would go yang, 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 yang. And I'm picturing one of those, but it's a cervix at the end, just opening and closing. And I could not stop laughing. So let's get this straight once and for all, because I think there are several people that are confused. The vagina is a muscle, okay? It's the entryway to womanhood. Woo! Mickey, your finger is quite perverse. It always looks like a middle finger to me. It is not. It is his index finger. As you can see, he only has 4 little fingers just like us, and yeah, it's not his middle finger. So here's Aaron, okay, and he would go in here. Now, your cervix is open because otherwise, how would sperm get in there? If you're ever confused, Gabby, that's the question to ask yourself. How do the little dudes get inside if it's closed? Well, they couldn't, could they? Another thing to remind yourself that your cervix is open normally is when you get your period, how would the blood get out? It has to be open, doesn't it? Otherwise, it would all back up and it would be like toxic shock syndrome land in here, okay? So, yeah, your cervix is always open unless you're pregnant. So, and that only occurs at a certain stage. But otherwise, doctors couldn't get the baby out, could they? So, your cervix is there to protect things from getting lost. I know you're all laughing. Don't laugh. You have no idea the things that I have assisted doctors in pulling out of people. God bless the cervix for stopping them. Otherwise, they'd all be in surgery getting toothpaste caps, Q-tips, bobby pins, barrettes, batteries, you name it. Biggest thing is tampons. People forget they have tampons in. And it's not pleasant to pull them out after a couple weeks. And yes, that's how toxic shock starts. Not everyone gets it, but it is a big one. That's why Tampax and tampon boxes contain a warning. The cervical opening is just big enough normally on an everyday to let these little dudes go in and blood to come out and keep other things that are large from going all the way up. Like I said, the uterus is divided into 2 sections. You have your cervix down here, which is the lower end. It's small. It's more muscular. And then you have the corpus, or the body, which is large and expandable. My instructor used to bring out her purse because she said, my purse is like a uterus. I can put everything in there, including clothes, for overnight visits, and it just keeps growing. And that's what a uterus does. If a child is in there, it will continue growing and getting bigger. Your cervix does not. While they are part of the same organ, they are comprised of some specialized different tissues because each half serves a different purpose. So when you get pregnant, your little swimmer goes up and then goes through this connection. In the meantime, all your hormones are working as normal, and your egg has matured. And one egg will go pew, and it's in the tube, and it gets fertilized, and it floats down, and all these nice hormones have prepared this neat little bed for it, and it floats around finding a place to implant. Now, it may kind of bounce, it may slough, it may roll, whatever, but at some point, it's going to implant into the thickened endometrial tissue that has been prepared by these guys. And then that begins the journey of life. Your corpus will continue to expand as the child grows. No more eggs are coming out, usually, though they can. And all energy is being focused on the growing fetus. Not everyone has beautifully open, clear tubes. For whatever reason, you could have stricture where parts of your tube are thinner. You can have like a plaque-like scarring inside. Whatever the case may be, sometimes it's fate. The fertilized egg begins to grow in the tube because it didn't float out. And that's when you have an ectopic pregnancy. The fetus gets to a certain size and it ruptures the tube. That can be deadly. It is very painful and you lose your tube. If you have ever gone through that, I am so sorry, because that is ungodly painful and heartbreaking at the same time. So let's go to our menstrual cycle, because it plays into all of this. And of course, we all know Gabby's cycle because she shares it with us all the time. So your menstrual cycle has 3 phases. If you own a dog, a cat, a horse, you know this. Sheep. All girls have 3 phases, regardless of species. You have your follicular, your ovulatory, and then your luteal. Oh, I just thought of it. I should have written it in red. Oh, darn it. Okay, for next time. No, I'm never doing this subject again. I'm serious. This is not my forte. I'm telling you. Get tired of drawing these things. Okay, but I'm joking. You know me. I'll teach you anything, but don't ask me to draw male reproduction. I got in trouble for that one. It is important, and it's important for men to know this. In case you ever get married, have a girlfriend, you should know these things. So on average, it's 28 days is your cycle, okay? For simplicity of this lesson, we're going to do it days 1 through 14, 15 through 28/30. I'm not going to pick Gabby's dates. I'm not going to play with a random number. We're going to make it easy on my smooth brain, okay? I really should draw this out, but stay with me. I'll do it slowly. Days 1 through 14, the most happens. It starts in your brain. Your FSH and your LH are released from your pituitary in your brain and go to your ovaries. There they are in your ovaries, and what they do is they stimulate the little follicles that are holding your eggs. They will stimulate 15 to 20 eggs on average. Each of the little eggs are inside what looks like a little shell that's on the stem of the follicle. These are really super tiny because they're inside your ovaries. Ovaries aren't big. So you got 15 to 20 of these little guys all growing inside. The FSH and the LH trigger off the stimulation of estrogen. And as the estrogen increases, the FSH decreases to the point it turns itself off, because what the follicle stimulating hormone does is it's stimulating each of the little follicles to pop out eggs. If it didn't turn off, you'd have 1,000,000 eggs. And it regulates the amount of eggs. So as the number of eggs reaches 15 to 20, it turns off the FSH, or turns it down to the point no more eggs are produced. Your ovary says, this is enough. This is what I can handle. Okay? As the cycle continues in the first 14 days, you'll notice this one's bigger. What happens is one egg will become dominant. And that one takes all the energy and nourishment and attention away from everyone else. As soon as one becomes a little bit dominant over the others, it begins producing estrogen, and that starves out these guys. Then you enter your ovulatory phase. So around day 14, 15, this dominant one, who's now pumping out its own estrogen, starving everyone else out, he's maturing or she's maturing. The estrogen that this one is producing triggers off your brain your pituitary to produce a surge of luteinizing hormone to be released. When the luteinizing hormone reaches a certain threshold, which just takes a few hours, that prompts this mature egg inside its little follicle shell to pop open, and that egg gets released. That action of the shell rupturing and the egg being released at its maturity is ovulation. The little fimbriae catch it and move it into the tube. Between 1 and 5 days after ovulation, your cervix will produce, okay, now don't be eating lunch, will produce something that looks like egg whites, like scrambled egg whites. It's a discharge, but what it does is it is there to help little dudes who are swimming and coming in to move more freely. It's like a transport medium, helping them up. It also helps to feed them because around their little, what would you call it? Around the sperm head versus tail is a shell, and it's very hard to protect the DNA and cellular matter contained within. It needs a certain acidity to break, which the mature egg has. So when Gabby shows us her frothy white discharge, it's ovulation. Or should I say, she's ovulating. It's not ovulation. Ovulation is the act of a mature egg being released from the ovary into the tube. Now we're going to go back to these guys. Oh, wait, let's change him because he left. Right after ovulation occurring, you start the luteal phase. Remember your little follicle that the shell broke open? See, nobody's in there anymore. But what is left is a half-broken shell and a follicle, right? This is called the corpus luteum. It's inside your ovary, and it actually has an important job. This little broken guy, I should really stop saying guy, produces, sorry, I had to laugh, estrogen and progesterone, which helps prepare the endometrium by thickening the lining. So it's actually secreting the hormones needed to prepare for the little egg who's on his journey to be fertilized, or if fertilized, on the journey to be implanted. So if it is not fertilized, if all the little swimmers never make it, don't meet anyone, Tinder was a bust, the little egg comes down and says, life was great, and all that thickened tissue sloughs off, and you have your period. If the little swimmer did reach, and only one's going to reach it, if it did and it got fertilized, the little egg comes down, finds a place, and wherever it lands, all that thickened wall becomes the placenta. So how many eggs do we have? Well, when you're developing in your mother, you have 6 million on average. When you're born, you're down to 1 million. And when you hit puberty, you only have about 300,000. From there, it's a lottery. Some women shed more eggs than others. So some women go into menopause a lot younger. You go into menopause when you run out of eggs. You've served your species' purpose, because nature designs us to reproduce, to continue our species, regardless of what species we are. So once we run out of the ability to reproduce, our job is kind of done. In many species, like octopus, they die. Their purpose was fulfilled and they're done. In other species like us or like dogs, well, no, most animals, yeah, pop out eggs until some primates do run out and go through like a menopause like period. Dogs, yeah, they do. They run out and they just become old dogs. I've never seen a dog on estrogen replacement. I'm sure it's a thing now because I remember when dentistry started and it was blown off as like trivial. But yeah, for humans, once you run out of eggs, your baby making days are done. If you want to keep your pieces and parts and they're healthy, good for you. Some of us don't have healthy pieces and parts, so we get partials or we get full histers. If you can, try to keep your ovaries. If you have ovarian cancer in your family, if you've had PCOS, if you've had problems with your ovaries, maybe not such a good idea. Also, in the little collection of cells at conception implant, there's like 8 and they keep exponentially dividing. It's called a zygote and it's one of my favorite words. Just a fun fact I threw in there. Okay, so this was FeRtility, and anatomy and cycles and hormones. So hopefully Gabby learned something and how to pronounce things, Danny. See you for the next TED Talk. Hey, Batty? Okay.